Death Battle is no more, right? Rooster Teeth has shut down. Death Battle is finished, and the creators are trying to bring it back because they know nothing they ever work on again will ever have the same mass appeal that Death Battle has. All they have to do is send their interns out to figure out what result will get them the most clicks, and then they just rake in cash by abusing fair use laws, right? Death Battle is and always has been scum, and currently they are on their way to bringing back the show. And now that they're independent, it is now time for YouTubers to rise up and condemn these fanboys for what they're doing. Attempting to milk money out of more established brands, right? I don't care who wins. I don't care about the research. I don't care about the animation. Death Battle should not exist as a concept. And in order to devalue this brand, we're going to have to come out and really talk about all of the things they've done wrong. And to start with, it's time to address the elephant in the room, the myth of Superman's strength. This issue should be well known to all of you who have ever sat through an episode of Death Battle, right? Of how they glamorize Superman and how they idealize him as literally this unstoppable person. And they went to great lengths to remake the episode twice to try and reaffirm their positions. That Goku could not get stronger and beat him. This is, of course, patently ridiculous because there are plenty of characters in DC that are established to be far stronger than Superman. Batman can beat him. Magic users can beat him, right? Superman is not all powerful, in spite of what his fanboys want you to believe, right? To me, it seems fairly obvious that Goku would be able to beat Superman, someone who is not able to fight at his level. And anyone who tries to say, well, like, Superman has infinite strength because he once held infinite books, right? You're talking about comic book continuity, right? None of it makes any sense. Applying it to real world logic to it is just absurd. The long and short of the matter is that Goku has fought higher stake battles than Superman ever will, and has a much shorter history, and has already established himself to be far greater than Superman ever is. And to me, there's no real denying who the better character is, what the better story is, the better artwork, the better creator, right? Like there is no denying that Dragon Ball imparts, real world wisdom and ideas and culture that Superman actively tries to subvert, right? Superman is, like all Western comic book characters, a propaganda icon, right? Superman is meant to impart the philosophy and the ideals of the creators onto an unsuspecting public, specifically children, right? The fact that Superman gives up his American citizenship in order to serve the world should give you a good idea of who exactly was behind the character, globalists. That is the reality behind the myth of Superman, is that he is a propaganda character that cannot be allowed to fail. Because if he fails, that showcases that the philosophy that the character is a propaganda figure for is faulty and will not impart itself onto the general population. So Goku, much like all other superior characters, is not intended for propaganda. He was created to entertain people, right? There are like real world ideas and philosophy imparted through Dragon Ball, but it's not inherently propagandish in nature, right? It's derived from Toriyama's own experiences. It's inspired by watching Chinese martial arts films. It's inspired by Asian culture and history, right? Dragon Ball is a remarkable example of just why Asian culture has been able to impress itself upon the Western world so much because in comparison, our all of our media has always been corrupt, it's always been filthy, it's always been degenerate, and Dragon Ball, funnily enough, is relatively pure and innocent and really showcases just what storytelling really should be about. It should be a reflection of our own lives and imparting real inspiration to us and being pure entertainment. Like as opposed to Superman, where we're expected to worship him like a god, right? All of these DC characters, like they're all meant to be figures that we look up to, respect, and imitate. Not through superhuman feats, but in their philosophy and ideals of these super powerful people controlling the world. The real reason Goku never won a death battle against Superman has nothing to do with the character's feats or the history or their powers or their abilities or their influence on one another. The real reason Superman won was because in the eyes of his creators and his fans, he cannot be allowed to lose. So, with all this in mind, how exactly would we realistically scale Superman versus Goku? Obviously, we can't, right? At its core, the issue with this kind of thing is that fundamentally, you have two completely different characters from two completely different creators who just don't really have a whole lot in common, and there's no reason to talk about this anyway, right? If you do, you are a nerd. But but imagine if one of these series depicted one of the characters in question and portrayed him as an absolute buffoon, the lowest of the low, weaker than Yamcha, weaker than Colonel Blue, weaker than so many forgettable early Dragon Ball characters, right? Who possibly could this character be? Could this how exactly is this possible that Superman is in Dragon Ball?
That's right, Superman is in Dr. Slump, the prequel manga to Dragon Ball, which is indeed set in the Dragon Ball universe. Superman is a no name superhero from Penguin Village who doesn't do a very good job fighting even the most minor of threats in the Dragon Ball universe, right? Like, this is a guy who failed to take on Colonel Blue, right? A character that lost to Bulma. Okay? This guy was bullied by another alien in preschool, right? Superman in the world of Dragon Ball is a complete and total joke.
Now I know what you're thinking, but Harmon, that's a different Superman. Yes, a different Superman in an alternate universe, right? You always want to talk about alternate universes when you want to talk about like when Superman came out on top of a fight, when Superman beat some other dude in some other universe, or how he reset time so like nothing that happened ever happened, and so like things just continue endlessly, forever, right? You're willing to talk about alternate universes and the multiverse stuff when it makes Superman look good. But when you put him in the Dragon Ball universe, and this is Superman, by the way, they call him something different in outside of Japan, but this is Superman. Superman, when he's in the Dragon Ball universe and he's portrayed as being not even able to stand up to Colonel Blue, like you have a genuine, real problem on your hands, right? You have a character that could not stand up to even the most minor of threats on Earth, let alone like the galaxy at large. Like if you think about it, like Frieza, no, not even Frieza, like Vegeta goes around like vaporizing planets all the time. Like the Kryptonians went extinct when their planet was destroyed, right? That is an essential aspect of the lore. If the Kryptonians are so great, weren't they somewhere else? Why didn't they colonize other planets? Why did they not specifically go to planets with yellow sun and harness their energy and save their dying race, right? They had the technology, otherwise they wouldn't be able to send Kal-El out off the Earth, right? Again, when you look at the bigger picture as opposed to simple just power scaling retardation, the reality is the Kryptonian race is not that impressive. This isn't about Goku versus Superman. Again, when you look at what the Kryptonians are like as a collective, you get a bunch of do nothing scientists who somehow went extinct under the most pathetic situation, in the most pathetic way imaginable, right? They lost to someone who in the Dragon Ball universe would have been like Vegeta tier, right? Their planet was destroyed. Dragon Ball does that all the time. Again, they didn't have weapons, they didn't have soldiers, they couldn't do anything to stop the destruction of Krypton, right? They can't do shit. And just like how Superman can't fix any problems in the DC universe. Yeah, we're told Superman's the greatest. We're told Superman's the strongest hero ever, but why exactly are things so dysfunctional in the DC universe? Why does the nonsense never stop? Why is there just nonstop, super villains everywhere and things going haywire? Everything's completely out of control. If Superman was so overwhelmingly powerful, there would be a stop to all of that. When you compare it to Dragon Ball, where after they beat one of the overarching villains, there are gaps several years in before the next threat, right? Piccolo doesn't come back for until Goku grows up, right? So again, when you look at the scale of things, Dragon Ball actually has characters grow, they develop, they age, they get married and have children. And meanwhile, Superman is doing the same thing he's always done. Oh, I'm morally justified because I'm stronger than you. No, you're not. Again, I could beat Superman, okay? It's not that hard to do, okay? Superman is not that strong. And it is high time that the community accepts this simple, very clear fact.